so it's 6:30 p.m. and I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Nashoba Regional School Committee. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so you guys can all mute and stand if you would like. Follow along. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so our first matter of business is to open the school choice hearing, and I will hear a motion from our vice chair.
Okay, I move to open the 2024-2025 school year choice hearing at 6:31 p.m.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All right, we'll take the vote. For those who are in favor, I say yes. Shondor? Did I lose him? Shondor, can you hear me?
I
Maybe
don't
not.
see him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amy Vessels.
Here he is. He's up at the
Oh,
top.
there he is. Thanks, Shondor. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Dana and friend. Yes, she said. Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
And Karen.
Yes.
All right, everybody. So that opens up our annual school choice hearing. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Superintendent Downing, for a brief presentation, reiterating much of what we heard last meeting.
That's right. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I will ask Ms. Masterson if she'll go ahead and bring up the school choice hearing presentation. As you mentioned last week, we went through this presentation in detail. And so I've truncated all the attendance information. I've just included the hearing slides here. So thank you. This is our annual school choice hearing as required by Mass General Law. And I would like to begin, next slide, by outlining some important notes regarding school choice. This is automatically opened every year if the school district does not vote to close it by June 1st. The Nashoba Regional School Committee can limit the number of students accepted as well as the grades and locations where they will be assigned. If there are more applicants than available seats, a lottery will be conducted. Employees may enroll their children through school choice and they're subject to the same rules and regulations of all applicants. No preferences for employees are allowed. Once accepted, the NRSD is obligated to provide the student with a free and appropriate education until graduation from high school. School choice does not apply to current students wishing to change schools within the district. Siblings of enrolled school choice students will be given preference in the process. Next slide. Here's an outline of the district net over the past 5 years regarding school choice. And you can see last year, we did reopen school choice for the first time in many years. And the district net did decrease in terms of the budgetary impact. Next slide. The school committee, when we took the approach that I'll describe again tonight, we opened 43 seats last year, of which we had 20 students, and all those who applied during the school choice window were accepted into the Nashoba School District this year. So how did we go about that? Next slide. We can manage the enrollment population of our school by following these recommendations. And as these recommendations were outlined to you, is to maintain and make sure that we always have room for residents in our towns to be able to have seats in our classrooms without adding additional staff to our schools. According to our class size guidelines of 24:1 in grades kindergarten through grade 2, 22:1, and 24:1 grades 3 and up. So to do that, the recommendations I will once again put forward to this committee is that we do not open grades kindergarten 1 or 2. These are our youngest learners. They show the greatest change in their learning curve in the early years, and we're getting to know and understand the complexity of those students, and their enrollment can shift from grade level to grade level. We would utilize the class size limits of no more than 22 students per class to enroll school choice students rather than 24, as I said before. And also no more than 220 students in a particular grade level at the high school. Across the district, we would not exceed 260 total students across any grade level. And that is to protect for ultimately when those students advance to the 9th grade and maintain that 220 threshold. For grades K to 8, we would not, excuse me, we've not opened school choice if enrollment is within 4 students of the class size floor. No more than 4 students per grade level per school should be considered. And we'd prioritize lower class sizes across locations to balance classrooms. And so with that are the enrollment and population trends from the previous presentation. Next slide. So here is a table of the bandwidth of when there are 2, 3, 4, and 5 sections, and up to 220 students, 10 sections potentially at the high school. Next slide. So based on the forecasted enrollment data that we have today, you can see from this chart that in grades PK through 2, we would close those grades. Grade 6 would also be closed because it exceeds the 260 student threshold for the district. So we wouldn't add any grade 6 students at any of our schools. Next slide. So based on that recommendation and the criteria I shared with you, here at Nashoba Regional High School, we would have room to add 4 students at each of our grade levels. Next slide. At Florence Sawyer's School, we have room to add 4 students at 3rd grade, 2 at 5th grade, 2 at 6th grade, that 2 at 6th grade should actually be blocked out because the 6th grade, that was an error. The 6th grade is recommended to be closed across the system. So 4 in 3rd grade, 2 in 5th grade, 0 in 6th grade, 4 students in 7th, 4 students in 8th. Next slide. For Mary Rowlandson Elementary, we recommend that all grades remain closed. Next slide. At Luther Burbank Middle School, there's enough room where we would allow, and I want to make a correction here, that should not be a 4, and this needs to be corrected in the motion as well. I apologize. That should be a 2, because 88 would be, or excuse me, that is a 4 because we have 5 sections. We can allow 4 there. Next slide. Forgive that error. Center School, we'd recommend closure at all grade levels. Then at Hale Middle School, again, 0 for 6th, 4 for 7th, 4 for 8th. And you can see the reason we allow 4 for 8th is the same at Luther Burbank because we have 5 sections at that grade level that allow us to do that. Next slide. So this is a summary. I would draw your eye to the 8th grade, column 8, and you'll notice that from my presentation, I had said 4 students at each of the 8th grade sections. However, across the district, there are only 249 students we anticipate in 8th grade. So we would only allow 11 across the 3 towns. And that is expressed in the recommended motion. So while the 4 adds to 12, we won't add more than 11 8th graders to stay in that criteria of 260 students on the recommendation. And so next slide, we'll wrap up with the motion considerations. So the motion considerations outline the detail that I gave you here. If it were the committee's choice to close school choice altogether, the motion would have to be to close school choice, because if you were to leave it open, as I said earlier, if you did not take that vote, it would remain open. So with that, Madam Chair, I will take any questions from the public.
So I'm looking at the screen here. It seems we might have one member of the public here, not to put pressure on the person who is labeled Chris, but if you would like to speak, please feel free. And of course, to the committee members, you've been through this maybe before, but in a public hearing, we typically reserve the time for the public to speak, but we will have time to deliberate this in the public meeting. Alita, nobody in the waiting room?
Oh, just Meg Mayo Brown waiting for the equity piece. That's
Thank
it.
you. Thanks.
I don't know if
Alright.
you can see the chat, Leah, but the person, Chris, does not wish to speak.
Oh, fantastic. I did not see the chat, so thank you for that.
Yep.
All right, everybody. So, it doesn't seem like there's anybody who wants to be heard, so I might hear a motion from our vice chair to close the public hearing at this time.
Sure. I move to close the 2024-2025 school year choice hearing at 6:42 p.m.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All right, guys, let's go around. I vote yes. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Cohen. Thanks. Dana?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Shondor?
Yes.
And Joe?
Yes.
All right, everybody. So we have closed the public hearing and we are now back in the school committee meeting and moving on with our regular agenda. And I thank members of the public for either watching or joining us. And Chris, you can kind of jump out of the Zoom now and resume watching on YouTube if you choose. All right, so moving on to our next item, it's the consent agenda. And Amy, do you have a motion for us?
I move to approve the consent agenda of April 24th, 2024, containing draft meeting minutes of April 10th, 2024, and the warrants of April 26th, 2024.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. I vote yes to approve. Amy Vessels?
Yes.
Dana?
Can I abstain because I wasn't here last week?
You can.
Abstain.
Jackie?
I'm also going to abstain.
Sharon?
Yes.
Amy Cohen?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Shondor?
Also wasn't here, so I'm abstaining.
Joe?
Yes.
And Karen?
Yes.
Okay. Whew, I think we made it. All right, so on to the school committee chairperson update. I don't have much other than I wanted to, at the request of Alita, to remind all the subcommittee chairs to make sure that you are getting your approved minutes to her from your subcommittees. Once you meet and approve the minutes of a previous meeting, just send them right along to Alita and she'll post them. And if anybody needs help with that, just let me know. All right, so our next item is the student representative report. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think our students are with us. Not today. It is such a busy time of year. We totally understand, especially our upperclassmen. They are just inundated right now. So we look forward to perhaps seeing them at our next meeting, and perhaps that will be, I'd like to know, Kirk, when Hansi's last meeting will be. I know Ava will continue to join us.
Yeah, I believe the last in-person meeting with Hansi will be our next meeting.
Yeah, okay, so,
So I think our in-person meeting will be the proper place for us to demonstrate our appreciation.
right. Okay, look forward to that. She's done such a great job. All right, guys, so moving on to the next item here, it's the superintendent's report. Oh, there was a concert at the high school. Thanks, Laura. Yeah. All right, so Kirk, the stage is yours. On to your report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that recognition. We're excited to share some things with you this evening. In the superintendent's report, you'll see several items. I'm going to take it a little bit out of order. In the third item under announcements is the FY25 NRSD budget book, where this is a book that was shared with you and all the town administrators and distributed to local officials. And I want to take this opportunity, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I'm going to share my screen to take you to our website where you can see where that is posted. So I think you have my screen now. We would like to show you by going to the Nashoba Regional School District website and clicking on the Finance and Operations page. You will see now under the Finance and Operations page, the Finance and Operations Center. This is our transparency center where you can find information. I'll click on this. I want to thank our communication specialist, Ms. Hannigan, and our Finance and Operations Director, Ross Mulcairn, for working hard in putting this page together as we have been, and this will grow. This is just a beginning for us. But this is where you'll be able to see various parts of the budget and hopefully expressed in ways that are easy to find for our residents. But we outline the budget process, the budget books, presentations on enrollment, the audits and end of the year reports, information around OPEB, and then of course the regional agreement, what it is, and the agreement itself. So as I said, this transparency page will continue to grow. I will first take you to the budget book for this year. And through the hard work of all of our entire team, we were able to put together this book. And as you will see, although I can't grab my arrow because I need to move everybody over here. Okay, so you'll be able to see, again, using issue, the book is well crafted, well put together, including reports from all of our departments, our schools, around important programming, and ultimately getting into the financial details of the school system. So as we know in the budget book, we want to be able to produce the why behind our work. And that's why the bulk of this budget book is about just that, because our public needs to know what it is they're purchasing when they approve the annual operating budget. And then a lot about the process in here, the funding sources, the E&D funds, how the assessments and contributions are made, the rolling averages, the debt assessment, all the things that Mr. Mulcairn has walked through, including the executive summary, so our residents have a complete understanding of the expenditures of the school district. So I'm going to stop my share there and really take this opportunity to show my appreciation, my thanks, my recognition of Mr. Mulcairn's leadership in the Finance and Operations Department. And in his leadership, that includes everyone, all of our department heads and our principals, and as well as Ms. Hannigan, our communication specialist. It took a team effort, and I think the product of which we're displaying our budget to our residents is a highly professional product that is very informative. So thank you, Mr. Mulcairn, for that. And thank you for letting me take a moment to share that. We'll certainly take your questions in a moment, but let's get on to our next two announcements, of which I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Friend to give us an exciting update on the innovation pathways, as well as talk about a fantastic recognition for our music education program. So Assistant Superintendent Friend.
Thank you, Superintendent Downing. Just a quick update tonight about where we are at with our Innovation Pathways programming at the high school. As I believe that you're aware, we had an application process for students interested in our fall cohort, and the application process closed right before April vacation on the 12th. So I thought I'd give you an update of what the interests look like from the application process. So we had 26 students submit an application for our business and finance pathway to begin in the fall. 18 from the class of 2028 and 8 from the class of 2027. Just the fact that I'm saying class of 2028 is frightening to me, but and for our advanced manufacturing and engineering pathway, a total of 9. 5 from the class of 2028 and 4 from the class of 2027. Confirmation emails have gone out to all students and families, telling them of the exciting news that they will be participating in our fall cohort. Also of note, Mr. A reached out to me today that we've had some additional interest from students for our advanced manufacturing and engineering pathway just this week. So we have actually reopened the application for any students who are interested in participating, wanting to make sure that it's as inclusive as possible. So good interest overall in our first year. We'll continue to keep the committee updated on our progress, as well as our solicitation of our partners, which will be part of our capstone and internship programming during our students' senior year. So we're underway and really, really excited that we're embarking on this great opportunity for our students. So that was the first update. Should I continue?
Please.
Okay,
We'll
the
do the
second,
updates and take questions.
yeah, the second one is great news on the music front. A special shout out to Miss Amy Bell Humor, music educator from Luther Burbank, for really taking the lead and the lion's share of the work on the completion and submission of our application to be recognized as a best community for music education district by the NAM Foundation. Our music educators tell me that this is top-notch recognition. I believe them. This is a unique honor and one that recognizes Nashoba for not only evaluating the arts, but music, ensuring access to music education to all students. Nashoba is only one of 23 districts in Massachusetts to receive this designation. Bragging rights, tools, and national recognition come with this award. Please be on the lookout. We will be posting a BCME seal on our school websites and our district website, and banners will be provided to each of our schools to celebrate this acknowledgement. Great job to Ms. Balhumer, Mr. Joe McCarthy, and to our entire music department, and most importantly, all of our student musicians in our Nashoba community, and for our families supporting music education at Nashoba. This recognition makes us smile, definitely.
So before we talk about strategic work, Madam Chair, we'll take any questions on the announcements.
Excellent. Well, I am going to begin by saying thank you very much for that transparency page. I know that that is a part that was part of both of your goals this year, and it looks fantastic. And we are super grateful. It's an excellent place for all of our town leaders and all of our townspeople to understand better what the priorities and the values of our district are as expressed through the dollars that they are spending. So will you use that tool as the presentation tool at the town meetings?
Well, no, because we have some limitations by the town moderators by which we have to operate under. So we've requested that, but we've been asked not to do video presentations. So, but we will certainly direct people that way so they understand the information.
Yeah, I just think it's a great opportunity to trumpet that accomplishment and make sure everybody knows that the page exists. I know that I'll be probably sending it out to everyone I know in the community so that they can go there and take a look. So thanks, Ross. Great work. Thank you, Kirk, on that front. Any other questions from the committee on other things? All right, well, congrats to our music program as well. That's fantastic news. And the Innovation Pathway programming is going to make us really stand out and I think encourage some kids to find a home at Nashoba High School as they get older.
That's the hope.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Laura.
Yeah.
All right, so on to strategic work.
Yeah, so Assistant Superintendent Friend is going to talk to us and give us an update on the K-5 literacy work.
And I will make a note that 9 to 12 science is coming down around the pike, but tonight is about K-5 literacy. We've included an update tonight about our curriculum review process for literacy as we're nearing completion of phase 2 of the process. Just a note, our 9 through 12 science is still in phase 1. I would like to acknowledge the hard work and true leadership of Laura Padgington, our curriculum director for ELA, literacy, and social studies. She is really worked tirelessly to support the process and a really large curriculum committee. I'd also like to thank the entire curriculum review committee for their engagement and for all of the teachers who have been field testing materials and providing feedback via surveys and completing rubrics and meetings during the entire process. Everyone's been truly engaged. It's been so impressive. 2 high quality instructional materials have been selected to field test. I think I had mentioned this before, EL Imagine Learning being one, and Wit and Wisdom being the second one. Both curriculums are highly rated on Ed Reports and Curate as per our parameters and our priorities, if you'll remember from our presentation in December. Field testing for EL has concluded, and we are finishing up the field testing for Wit and Wisdom as we speak. In addition to field testing, committee members, including myself, have visited or will be visiting schools in neighboring districts who have adopted and are implementing each of the curriculum. For example, visits to Westford and Tewksbury, North Andover, and Northborough, Southborough have been planned for next week. We visited Westford and Tewksbury. North Andover's tomorrow and Northborough, Southborough's next week. And that is part of the process, so we can actually see, looking forward, what implementation looks like. It also helps us answer questions that may have lingering from our field testing process. Part of our process has also included the formation of a K-2 subcommittee to specifically examine the foundational skills block, which is so critical for our early readers, our developing readers within our literacy block, and to ensure a few things: to ensure appropriate instructional materials, that our teachers have those, that we have early readers and decodables, and many of them, and that training are part of our selection and implementation process. So a shout out to this K-2 subcommittee, which has included teachers, literacy specialists, our coaches, and special educators, as well as curriculum director Padgington. To date, the committee has met a total of 16 times and has used our parameters and priorities, our vision for literacy really, as a beacon in terms of our process and our decision making. The committee will meet again on May 8th to make a recommendation as to which curriculum will best align with our Nashoba priorities. And we have scheduled an update to school committee on the planning calendar for May 22nd to provide the committee with an update of these recommendations and a fleshed out report of the decision-making process and what implementation will look like next year, hopefully. I'd also like to make a note that our continued involvement in the DESE Implement Network, which provides professional development and guidance for curriculum review and adoption and consistent meetings, but participation in this network has made the district eligible for $77,365 in grant money to support the curriculum implementation and selection process. So you may remember that Mr. Mulcairn and I presented to the committee for approval $15,000 grant award. This has been increased. We just found this out yesterday because of our participation in the DESE Implement Network. And we received word yesterday that we are eligible for this increased amount, totaling $77,365. So we're really, really pleased and excited about that. So good news yesterday. So we'll be providing that to the committee to approve at the next meeting if that's okay with the chair and the superintendent, but that's coming down the pike as well. That's it.
So we would be pleased to put that on the planning calendar. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah,
Wonderful news for everyone.
that will help with the purchasing of materials as well.
Great. Committee members, any questions on this strategic work, the literacy work? High quality instructional materials. All right, fantastic. That's great news. And I think that's it for the superintendent's report. Yeah, Kirk?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Moving right along, everybody, on our agenda tonight in new business is the phase 2 presentation for the equity audit work. And I will turn it back over to Kirk so he can help us understand what's going on there.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. I would like to once again welcome back our guest, Dr. Meg Mayo Brown, who is leading our efforts to as we work through a deep study and look at equity across our school system. This is the phase 2 report. And as I'll remind the committee, the phase 1, the phase 2 reports are just that. They're just reports. They're not recommendations. It'll be the final report at, I believe, Madam Chair, the June meeting is what's on the planning calendar. The final meeting is when we will outline recommendations and then begin to take the craft of the totality of the report and those recommendations and be building on what is our strategic work going to look like regarding equity across the school system. So at this point, I'm going to introduce once again Dr. Meg Mayo Brown, and she will lead us through a presentation highlighting the elements in the very dense and comprehensive report that you all have received. So Dr. Mayo Brown, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Superintendent, for the introduction, and it's great to be back with members of the school committee once again. As the superintendent had outlined, tonight is the opportunity to share with you an overview of the phase 2 report. The report in its totality is about 60 pages long, so I tried to pull out major sections of it that are built upon the key questions that formulated the audit. So whenever we're ready, we can start the PowerPoint presentation and I can go through it.
Great.
Great, next slide, please. The first couple of slides may look familiar to members of the school committee. We saw this in phase 1. It's a reminder of the definition of equity for purposes of the audit. And that is that educational equity means that each child receives what they need to develop to their full academic and social potential. And then some guiding frameworks for the audit are listed on the right. One is to critically examine policies, programs, and practices. As we spoke about last time, the National Equity Project reframes the work of districts rather than closing specific achievement gaps with a focus on students, which sometimes is considered more of a deficit model, to one looking at the district as a whole and what systems need to be in place, what capacities need to be developed so that, again, every child receives what they need to develop to their full academic and social potential. The next framework is around the time is now, right? The momentum is in so many communities, including Nashoba, around doing this work and coming together to look at things such as audits and policies and practices in order to explore next steps. And my favorite framework is one that's offered by Ron Heifetz, that there's no such thing as a dysfunctional organization, because every organization is perfectly aligned to get the results that you're getting in an organization. So if the results need to change, it's really looking at the organization and looking at the systems to see what needs to be either disrupted, recreated, or created. Next slide, please. This is a reminder of our key questions that grounded the audit. Again, equity begins in the classroom with each and every child getting what they need to reach their academic and social potential. So the majority of the key questions here focus on the instructional core, and that is the relationship between teacher, student in the presence of content. You'll see we had 10 key questions here. They're pulled from the Alliance for Resource Equity. Next slide, please. Our methodology was one to use our key questions that we just saw as the framework to engage in an inquiry-based collaborative process to examine programs and practices, to explore the district's current policies, programs, and practices through a quantitative and qualitative lens. So things that we can count through quantitative data, things that we can see and hear through qualitative data, like in terms of what's being observed, what are we hearing from stakeholders? And finally, a very important component of the audit is to invite stakeholder voice and participation through surveys and focus groups. Our phase 2 activities focused on inquiry-based equity walks in all of the district schools, to review and analyze all the survey data for patterns and trends, to integrate the focus group data with the survey data to gain a better understanding of what equitable and inequitable practices may exist in the district, to review targeted intervention supports for both academic, social, and behavioral needs, to look at the extent to which students have access to high quality and relevant curriculum and instructional materials, and finally to review family and community engagement practices. So again, I pulled some of the key questions to provide a very big overview. When I'm done with the presentation, I would love to hear any questions you have about specifics or dig deeper into the report. This is just to sort of ground our conversation in the overview of the report. Next slide, please. So one of the questions was, does Nashoba have a specific policy, mission, and vision regarding educational equity? So in reviewing policies and actions, and this was actually reported in phase 1, there is clear evidence of the committee's commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The 4 bullet points there are part of that evidence. The school committee has goals that were voted in October of 2023, where equity is specifically addressed in 2 of the 7 goals. The school committee, as you know, adopted a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging statement in December. The school committee established the Diversity, Equity, Awareness, and Racial Justice Advisory Group, and a strategic plan was launched for the next 5 years from 22 to 27, providing strategic objective for culture and belonging. Next slide, please. Another question we looked at was, does each student have access to high quality and culturally relevant curriculum and instruction materials? The district's system of review and adopting and implementing and refining and assessment while supporting the professional learning of faculty in the process is a best practice. This is a strength of the district in terms of the way the district is viewing curriculum, what needs to be adopted, how it needs to be implemented, systems for refining it, systems for assessment, all line up with what is considered best practice. Best practice is underlined there for those that have the Google, the PowerPoint slides. You can click on any of these. These are links that will take you to a resource that describes it in further detail. Now, while not all of the Tier 1 curriculum provides evidence of student access, of equitable access to high quality materials, again, the district is very clear about what structures are in place and what vision is in place to support the review, the refinement, and the adoption of high quality instructional materials. So again, that system is present, and there's evidence that that system is being used. We'll get into that when we talk about the adoption of the mathematics program in the elementary grades. To pull in some student voice here, students were asked in the survey, and these are students in grades 6 through 12, about the frequency of encouragement from teachers to learn about people from different races, ethnicities, or culture. And again, this is to get at the question around, does each student have access to culturally relevant curriculum? So what the students are saying here, overall, 51% of your students indicate a favorable response. And in this case, a favorable response is almost always and frequently. Next slide, please. Another key question was, does each student have access to teaching practices that are engaging, culturally relevant, and standards aligned? As we mentioned early on, in terms of the methodology, equity learning walks were conducted in each of the district's 6 schools. Observable practices are noted using the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's culturally responsive look-fors. Page 39 of the report provides additional detail about what look-fors were present in those observations, as well as the process that was used for the equity learning walks. Students participating in the focus groups provided additional perspectives about teaching practices. Again, what does a class, the question for students was in focus groups, what does a class where you learn a lot in look like, sound like, and or feel like? Again, on page 39 in the report, students offered some of their perspectives about that. I just want to capture a couple. When they were asked, what does a class where you learn a lot and look like, sound like, or feel like? Students said such things as people helping each other, warm, safe, comfortable, relaxing. Everyone should feel connected and everyone should be involved and feel safe. People collaborating with each other and not talking over other people. Everyone supports each other and is kind to each other. A feeling of connection with people. Interactive, lots of engagement, group work. Flexible seating, spaces away from people. Relaxing, happy, inviting. I should not go into class feeling super anxious or fearing my answers might be wrong. Interactive, immersive, fun, hands-on learning. Classes that focus on real life, engaging, very inclusive. Good relationship with teachers, personalized to a student. And finally, one student offered a pride flag. I don't know why, but it feels safe when one is in the room. Moving on to the next bullet, and again, let me just bring us back to the question, does each student have access to teaching practices that are engaging, culturally relevant, and standards aligned? While the percentage of students completing advanced coursework is a strength for sure for the district, when we disaggregate the data, it reveals that there's disproportionality among the high school student groups. And we talked about that in the phase 1 report. And we also talked about that is not a high school issue per se. There's something in the system that is generating that outcome by high school. And so that should be looked at as a K-12 finding rather than a specific high school finding. As you know, I'm sure, MCAS performance indicates that there are some opportunity gaps for student groups when we disaggregate for race, ethnicity, disability, and income. The district does demonstrate a commitment to coherent learning experiences, otherwise known as professional development for faculty and staff, to support these teaching practices that are engaging, culturally relevant, and standards aligned. Next slide, please. Another key question was, does each student who needs more high quality instructional time receive it? So this is for students who are engaged in tier 1 curriculum and instruction, but need extra, sometimes we'll say doses of instruction or additional tiers of instruction in order to be successful. Again, a strength of the district is the multi-tiered system of support system that is in place. So when you look at the MTSS, as we'll say, for multi-tiered system of support, the district's handbook is clear about the vision, a framework, and a rationale for why students need additional instructional support. The handbook provides evidence-based practices and methodology. It follows the key components of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's blueprint for MTSS. There is an incredible flowchart that I will say I've already shared with other districts that talks about that gives specific and detailed information, setting the expectation and practice for effective implementation of MTSS. The flowchart in itself is an exemplar. There is a system and expectation of data literacy and monitoring, so that teachers and schools are looking at data and making decisions about students in terms of who needs the additional high quality instructional time. And there are specific tiered instructional resources in the handbook. Professional learning communities are noted as a collaborative process to support MTSS, because when teachers have the opportunity to come together in those PLCs, they have the opportunity to review student data and ensure that targeted interventions and supports are selected that are aligned with what their students need. Time is often a resource that districts struggle to find in order to provide additional high quality instructional time. Nashoba has found that time with the WIN blocks, the What I Need Now blocks. They're in the master schedule across every school, every grade level, K through 8, again, providing the opportunity for targeted instruction for students who need additional time. Next slide, please. There's a lot of information on this slide. I break my own rules by putting way too much text on here, but I wanted to draw your attention to the percentages in red. Students were asked 5 questions in the survey. They were asked a lot of questions, but these 5 questions focus on a sense of belonging and how your students are feeling about belongingness in school. So when asked, again, for students in grades 6 through 12, how much do you feel you belong at your school? 54% of students had a favorable response, meaning they answered completely belong or belong quite a bit. When asked, how much do you matter to others at your school? 42% of students had a favorable response, meaning I matter a tremendous amount or I matter quite a bit. When students were asked, how connected do you feel to the adults in your school? 31% of students had a favorable response, saying extremely connected or quite connected. When asked, how well do people at your school understand you as a person? 43% of students had a favorable response, indicating extremely well or quite well. And finally, when students were asked, how fairly do students at your school treat people from different races, ethnicities, or cultures? 82% of the students provided a favorable response. When disaggregated for race and ethnicity, students identifying as Black or African American had the least favorable response of 62% of extremely or quite fair. So you've got about a 20% gap in those responses in the aggregate and how Black and African American students responded. When we look at those 5 questions, and when we review them by race and ethnicity, what we notice is that students identifying as white respond more favorably to the 5 questions outlined above, with students who identify as Asian respond least favorably to the 5 questions. Themes from the student focus groups also provided some opportunities to get some additional perspectives about students' lived experiences in school. And students of color are expressing feelings of isolation or alienation due to being in the minority, experiencing difficulties in forming connections with peers, teachers, and staff who may not understand their cultural backgrounds or experiences. Next slide, please. Another key question is, does each student have access to effective social and emotional learning opportunities? Again, the district is prioritizing social emotional learning within its district plan. As you know, there are 2 strategic initiatives. Number 3 is to integrate social emotional learning best practices into daily instruction in student life. And the next one is to develop and implement a systemic approach to social emotional learning that creates equitable learning conditions for all students. So each school, what I found was each school offers aligned school improvement goals with the district's SEL strategic initiative. So there's a through line there in the strategic plan. There's an expectation and strategic initiative captured, and every school in Nashoba, all 6 schools, are aligning those school improvement goals with that, so that it goes from district to school, so that as the district is working on it, schools are working on it as well. Nashoba fosters an environment intended to support staff in adopting effective SEL opportunities for all students, particularly at the K-5 level. I did phrase this in a way that fosters an environment because professional development, there are systems and structures available for faculty, for staff, for schools. It's not, we'll get into this in just a moment, but it's not quite evident that all of those areas are being fully adopted by schools at this point. And the district does clearly identify, this is the last bullet, where there is more work to be done. That work is clearly spelled out. It's the matter of having the work take place in schools. The work is articulated. There are systems in place for it. It's adopting the level at the school level, the work that needs to be done in social emotional learning. Next slide, please. Another key question, does each student experience a safe school with transparent, culturally sensitive, and consistent expectations and discipline policies? Every Nashoba school has a school handbook. It contains the district's code of conduct. It describes the purpose of the code of conduct and an overall approach to discipline. There is variability among those handbooks in terms of communicating consistent expectations and discipline policies. I want to be clear that every handbook has the required school committee policies, the state and federal regulations. The variability exists in how other policies and practices within the school are described to families and caregivers. Student speakers and focus groups note improvement in culturally sensitive. This is particularly around faith-based practices, that there's improvement, particularly at the high school in this area. Parents and caregivers attending focus groups express some concerns about the consistency and variability of discipline practices across schools, and yet parents and caregivers, 67%, feel that discipline practices are working extremely well or quite well for their child, right? So there's a bit of a difference there, right? So it's working well for my child. 67% of those that responded in the survey are saying, but yet I'm here. One interpretation may be, right, I'm hearing that there might not be some overall consistency across all schools in the district. Something to unpack a little, down the road a bit. I want to amplify something that came out of the student focus groups. Student speakers in the focus group identified racial slurs as a primary area needing attention in schools, specifically the need for explicit expectations around the use of language and consistent consequences when the behavior occurs. Students reported, for example, that the N word may be used. The student who used it may be told by an adult, don't do that again. Then the student, there's no consequence for it, and the behavior repeats itself. Next slide, please. Another key question, does each student attend a school that actively and meaningfully engages family? Again, the strategic plan prioritizes family engagement, particularly around communication. Parents and caregivers attending the focus groups representing students of color identify communication, specifically targeted outreach, as a necessary area of improvement for the district and schools. Again, this is captured in the district's strategic plan. It's an area that's being worked on. As the district continues to work toward greater inclusivity, there are some themes from parent and caregiver focus groups that, again, we want to highlight for the school committee. One area is hypervisibility and otherness. Standing out as the only person of color can lead to feelings of being constantly watched or scrutinized, with one's racial identity overshadowing other aspects of their identity and leading to a sense of otherness. Tokenism and pressure to represent, being the sole or small number representative of their racial or ethnic group, can place undue pressure on individuals to represent their entire community, leading to feelings of being tokenized or reduced to a stereotype. This is further exacerbated by the idea of being the model minority. And then finally, navigating power dynamics. Negotiating power dynamics within predominantly white spaces can be challenging. as individuals may feel marginalized or excluded from decision-making processes and leadership opportunities. Again, these were themes that were combined from parent and caregiver focus groups, and we felt it was important to highlight those for you this evening. Next slide, please. Another key question, does the teacher and leadership workforce reflect student diversity? The chart that you see before you is a chart from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. It displays the annual number and percent of Nashoba's educators who self-report or identify as non-white on the first weekday in October of each school year. So you see you have 3 years there. It gives you a sense. I believe, just one moment, I'm going to check my notes. The district is currently, when we look at the data, 97% white. So to the question, does the teacher and leadership workforce reflect student diversity? No, not at this time. However, the district has a teacher recruitment plan that articulates and operationalizes the district's desire to diversify the workforce. And also the district applied for and received the Teacher Diversification Grant. So funding is providing for professional development for this year and next year for the district's Equity Team and Leadership Council. Next slide. So overall strengths from, sort of taking all those slides and summing it up here. The district strategic plan is most certainly driving the work of district planning, including the development and early implementation of systems designed to advance equitable outcomes for students. There's evidence of alignment with the strategic plan in school improvement plans. We see it in the teaching and learning resources. We see it in professional development. There's a great effort, I would say, within the district to align systems and structures to that strategic plan. It is driving the work of the district. It is not a plan that is sitting on the shelf in any way. It is it's articulating the work, the important work of the district over the next 5 years. Another equity-focused strength is the Department of Teaching and Learning in Nashoba. The systems and structures there are providing an equity focus and lens in all areas. You can see it in the infrastructure that is emerging. You can see it in the curriculum review that I had talked about in the report. Bridges in Mathematics is an example of how the Department of Teaching and Learning is using equity, an equity-focused lens to adopt curriculum. You can see it in assessment practices. You can see it in the multi-tiered system of support we talked about. You can see it in professional development. All organized to increase the inclusive and equitable practice for each and every student in Nashoba. Another equity-focused strength is the MTSS system that we talked about. It's evident in math, in ELA, and social emotional learning. And finally, the district is demonstrating a commitment to student well-being through comprehensive planning, not yet in full implementation, right? Comprehensive planning in social emotional learning and behavioral health. Next slide, please. So areas for further examination by the district. Much of the district's current equity focus is, as I say, importantly, on outputs. It's what are the activities that we're doing to around an equity focus. I've captured here stakeholders will likely want to understand what are the expected outcomes and impact with the investments in your outputs. So as you're doing what are the expected outcomes of the curriculum that you're adopting? What are the expected outcomes and impact of the professional development, for example? As the district is developing and implementing systems and structures in teaching and learning, processes for accountability to the systems are not yet evident. And what I mean by that is if the district is providing professional development, or not if, the district is providing professional development in equity-focused areas. What are the systems and structures and the expectations that that professional development is then realized in the classroom? What we saw from some of the faculty and staff survey data, and I had captured a quote in the report from a staff or faculty member who indicated it seems that the professional development in equity is optional. So if you're not one to participate in the optional piece of the equity focused development, how is it that you can expect or hold faculty accountable for those equity focused practices in the classroom? Just something to think about. The third area, student handbooks do not yet share with families a collective equity focused vision of the school committee and district leaderships. Think about those school handbooks as an opportunity to engage with families, to articulate your commitment and vision around equity with families. The student handbooks provide a great opportunity to share some of that. Granted, it's one-way communication, but again, it's an expression of your commitment and vision to equity. And it's a bit of a missed opportunity right now in the student handbooks. Student survey data sets in the area of belonging. That's why I wanted to share that slide with you, the percentages of students who are feeling a sense of belonging and those who did not indicate a favorable response. There's work to do in that area, right? But again, I'll go back to the district has articulated, and there are systems and structures that are available to work on that area on connectedness and belongingness with students. It's articulated out. The work just needs to be given a chance to be done in the district. And finally, the reported lived experiences of BIPOC students and families. Again, this is coming out of focus groups in the context of their school communities is one right now of limited representation in curriculum, staffing, extracurricular activities, and outreach. And again, I would say, as I say that to you tonight, remember that there is evidence of systems and structures that are addressing the curriculum piece, that are addressing the staffing piece, that are addressing the outreach piece. So much of this is sort of in this early implementation phase. There are times when equity audits are done with districts where systems and structures aren't even imagined yet, right? Nashoba has done that work. You've visioned that work. You've articulated that work. You've stated that work. Now it's the matter of having that work, take hold in each and every classroom, right? So that each and every student can reach their, as we defined educational equity in the very beginning of the presentation, reach their full academic and social potential. And I think that might be the last. Oh, finally, next steps, phase 3. We'll meet with district leadership to discuss some recommendations. That'll be the next phase of the report. I'll draft the final report for review and feedback and submit it, which again will include recommended strategies supported by research-based practices. Thank you.
So that was excellent. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to open it up to committee members to perhaps ask clarifying questions, anything that they would like clarity on, or probing questions if you'd like. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had 2 quick clarifying questions, and the first had to do with the slide regarding Dr. Brown's assessment of our school committee policies. And the question I had was that just an assessment or review of policies that are specifically geared and targeted towards DEI, or was it an assessment of all the policies? And I asked that in light of the fact that we've been counseled and it's been suggested that we as a committee need to review all of our policies with regards to this particular issue. So with respect, and I have 2 questions. That's the first one. With respect to that slide, was that just targeted towards DEI specific policies, or did it include okay, so it wasn't the entire policy manual, correct?
No, just those that focused on equity or equitable outcomes. Yeah.
And my second quick question has to do with in the report, I see that the term, I believe it's race, ethnicity, and culture is used a number of times. I feel I have a fairly good assessment of what race is and what ethnicity is. I'm not so sure I understand what culture means. And in that vein, could you tell me exactly what culture means as far as your report is concerned? And would that include people who are, we would describe them as neurodiverse?
Yes. So I want to respond in two ways. The report, in analyzing the data, I wanted to be sure that I not only looked at race, ethnicity, right, but we were also looking at students with disabilities, students who were reported in the high needs category, if you will, students who were considered English learners, so that it was a broad look beyond race and ethnicity. In terms of culture, I feel like that largely came out of there's culturally responsive teaching, right? And being sure that students see themselves in curriculum, for example, see their cultures and become aware and understand other cultures. Much of the conversations in focus groups focused on particular families or students' cultures. So did that clarify it for you?
All right, I think Joe's satisfied with that answer, so thank you for that. What other questions or comments do we have? Yeah, Jackie.
I just, I did have some questions, but when I crosswalked it with the full report, it was very clearly answered for me. So thank you for the broad overview, but also the documentation to be able to drill down into those specific areas. I guess I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for all of this information, and then thank you for the families and the students who participated in the process, because it was really important and rich work, and it's driven by student voices in our community.
Thanks, Jackie. Amy Cohen.
Yeah, I want to also thank you. I feel like this was really important work that I've been really looking forward to for years. And for me, it illuminated that we are headed in the right direction, and that we've really outlaid a really specific and appropriate vision for what we want Nashoba to be. But there's work that we have to do to kind of realize that vision. And so when you're looking at the next phase of your report, I'm just wondering, would you, and I know the scope has already been defined, so I'm just wondering, in that scope, is part of your recommendations going to help the school committee understand like best practices we could be using as we're reviewing our policies for how they contribute to work that needs to be done? I feel like that's been a question of mine since I joined the school committee. Like, how can we guide our work with regard to equity and giving our students equitable opportunities?
The school committee, in your role, you really are guiding the work in such a tremendous way. Unlike I've seen in many districts, the way that you've gone about to clearly vision and state the expectations for the district. Again, I'm just looking, you've got it in your goals, you've got a statement, you have the Dear Jay committee, you have a strategic plan. You've done the work that a school committee needs to do in terms of setting policy, of setting the expectation. So much of the work now is around implementation of what you're expecting to happen in the district, right? So the governance piece of the school committee, the policy setting, that work is, I'm not saying it's done, but you've set the district up for success in that regard. I would say the school committee's role around to really ensuring that those policies, right, are taking place in the way that you expect them to, right? And that's the district leadership's work now, is now that that vision is set, now that those policies are in place, the implementation, the administration of those is the work of the district leadership. I would say that is the great relationship between the school committee and the district leadership, that you're working on that together, right? So I think, to your question, it's really about asking the important questions at school committee meetings, like, how's the work going? Getting reports on various aspects, whether it's in curriculum or professional development or, social emotional learning, hearing the work and supporting the work in that way.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
may I?
please.
Thank you. I also would like to add on to Dr. Mayo Brown's answer by harkening back to the construction of our work around the strategic plan and ultimately the district's approval of that strategic plan. The school committee voted to approve that plan, but what we discussed in the process, and Madam Chair, I believe you were on that team, as we discussed that once we go through the phase in the culture and belonging section of conducting the equity audit, it is with certainty that the outcomes and things that we will learn there will inform us in a way that we need to then embed them in our future strategic plan. So I'm signaling that to the committee that we'll be coming back in the fall of next year and looking to some amendments of our 2027 plan, and not wait until we come back to the renewal of the plan process in 26-27. So we'll be revisiting that based upon our learnings that come forward at the final report in June.
Amy, yeah.
Just one other comment. I'm not sure I couldn't find a link to the actual presentation that was given. Is that something did I miss it? Is it there?
I think it's in the materials. Yeah.
Or-
There's
okay.
just so many listed. It's in there.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Jackie.
I just wanted to mention, alongside the work that's happening at the district level by the administrators, part of the ongoing conversations that we're having is, in what way is DRJ supporting the work of the school committee? And so to Amy's question, like, I know that we've created this structure, but there are, I think, continued ways that we can think about and inform our work in a really meaningful way. And those conversations are happening at DRJ meetings. It will happen this summer at a retreat. So there's always an opportunity, I think, to integrate feedback, and then also to think more concretely about what we're doing as a school committee moving forward.
Amy, something else? I see that look on your face.
Did anybody else have a question? Because
No, go ahead. Go.
I just keep coming back to the slide about the students reporting, self-reporting of sense of belonging. I mean, to me, that data was, I guess I kind of expected there to be some kind of finding in that regard, but the numbers were a little surprising to me at how low they were across 4 different measures. And to me, what it tells me is that there seems to be, the word that's coming to mind that I'm trying to avoid using, but I can't think of a better word, is a disconnect between what we're visioning and what's actually happening in the classroom. And so I'm just, I guess, when you're putting together your final report, I would also be interested in learning how we can continue to monitor that type of feedback from students, so it's informing the work that we do, and how we can bring student voice more into some of the decisions we're making with those indicators.
So I believe that the district is engaged with Panorama. So Kirk, I'm looking at you, that would be something that you would have longitudinal data on each time you administer that to see the movement in belongingness.
Yeah, we'll continue to survey students, and even if we shift platforms in the future away from Panorama to another, we'll continue to do that. So yes.
And if I may, I would also offer that the social emotional learning framework that's articulated and not all of it yet implemented consistently across all schools holds great promise for increasing those numbers. It's captured that again, and I believe it's in a strategic initiative, right, that becomes part of daily practice in classrooms, the social emotional learning piece of it. And again, it holds great promise to the extent that it gets implemented.
Feel compelled to jump in and just say that those numbers seem so low to me. And if you pull it apart like the full report does, there's some grade levels where it's actually much lower than the aggregate numbers. And so, I mean, what it just makes me question is what's happening with our kids. We can't put blame on our schools for everything. It's just, it's mind-boggling to me, those low numbers that kids are not feeling connected. And so, I feel like the problem feels gigantic, but I wonder what other questions we could ask to maybe pull it apart even more and try to understand even more. Like, for example, as a teacher myself, I know that every single day I just kill myself to try to connect with the kids. And I am finding that right now it is as hard as it's ever been in my 25 years of teaching to connect with kids. And so, like, I want the community to know that this is a very complex problem and that it lives at all of our doorsteps. And so we all need to take responsibility. It needs to be a very holistic approach. I know the recommendations are coming, and I'm not trying to recommend, but what I do know is that every single stakeholder, including the kids, own this, and that we need to make sure that we're holding everyone accountable as we go to make recommendations and ask ourselves, how can we build capacity within the staff? How can we make sure that they feel like they belong? How can we make sure that parents feel like they belong? Because, when parents feel like they don't belong, that kind of talk can kind of seep in at the dinner table. And then kids start feeling like they don't belong. And that just like feeds itself. So, I know that the numbers might feel low and they look low, but I'm looking for a much more complicated answer as to why that number is so low. It is cultural, like American culture is driving it, things like that. And so I just want to put that on the table before everybody feels like super low about that number, that it could be a very complicated reason for why it is there. I see Sharon's hand. Go ahead, Sharon.
Hi, I have so many thoughts in my head right now, and I hope that what I say here will make sense, and I will say it not badly. I want to thank you for all this information and for all of the encouraging words about systems being in place and evidence of work being done. It is something that the district has worked really hard on getting to this point in the last 3 or so years. I am discouraged that, like Amy and Leah were saying, that the numbers seem low in terms of just basically belonging, being a part of the community. That is really discouraging. And also that it seems like we have systems in place, but they are not being implemented consistently. And specifically to me, one of those is the social emotional learning that I wish that we were at a place where we were implementing that more consistently. And I hope that as you finish up your work that we'll get some really good recommendations and that the district will embrace them, and I'm not speaking just to any one particular group, but I think as a whole, the community, the families, the school committee, all of the people that work in our schools, all of us will really be able to embrace those recommendations and really make some real positive change for our kids.
Sharon.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yeah, go right ahead, Kirk.
And as I hear some committee members talking about recommendations, in the coming weeks, Dr. Mayo Brown, myself, Assistant Superintendent are going to meet, and we're going to be talking about the format of which the recommendations will be coming from this committee. What I will do to sort of frame expectations on those recommendations is I would envision them. I'm going to take the last example we heard from Ms. Pock on social and emotional learning. A recommendation could possibly look like alignment in a social emotional learning program, but it wouldn't be as specific to say, do this to get that. And so I just want to present that to the committee, that the recommendations are going to be, these are the things that we should be looking at and focusing on in the steps of our strategic work. And then we apply our systems and practices to get those things into place. So I just want to frame that as an expectation as we come into the final report in June.
Yep. All right, guys, not seeing any more hands. All right. So thank you so much for that report.
You're welcome. Thanks for
It's
the opportunity.
Yeah, it's enlightening. And I know, just like I think Amy said, we've been waiting literally years for this information. And although some of it is a little hard to take, much of it is incredibly inspiring. And we're grateful for the leadership of this district kind of setting the stage, and we look forward to the recommendations that can make it real for kids. So thanks for your help.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you, Meg.
Knowledge is power, everyone. I believe it. So we're going to head on to perhaps more clear-cut things and into the finance and operations report. And so I don't know, Kirk, do you want to set it up or right to Ross?
I think we can just go straight to Ross McCarron, Finance and Operations Director.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to present this evening. I may not describe the work that we do as always clear cut, but I appreciate that these reports are seen as clear cut. So thank you to the chair. So a few areas that I want to call to your attention this evening as we review the report. Primarily, and we talked about this in previous iterations, but the special education department line, we know that due to some increased costs, we're going to be spending down that money. What I do want to acknowledge to the school committee this evening is that we did receive confirmation that we qualified for extraordinary relief under circuit breaker, which means that we will get additional funding this year through the circuit breaker mechanism. It is unlikely that special education line will be in a positive balance, but it will be less of an impact to our circuit breaker balance, as we'll be taking in more money this year. And it does not impact any claims that we make next year. So this is really good news. We don't know our actual circuit breaker extraordinary relief number yet. We have a webinar next week with DESE, and then we'll start to get our notifications after that. The other thing that I want to call to your attention is just within the cluster of our building accounts. We certainly are looking at some healthy projected balances at the end of the year. It is likely that these, along with the curriculum, professional development, and system-wide balances will increase as our actual expenditures come a little bit clearer, and we know for certain what absolutely needs to happen in FY24, but it's likely that these numbers will go up. Facilities is always a question mark, so we can't make any guarantees around that because of what may or may not happen, but it's likely that the overall balance that's projected for the end of the year will continue to increase. It is doubtful that it will be as high as it was last year at the end of FY23, but likely to increase at some level.
All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the March operations report? Scott, I assume that you guys already discussed this at budget and warrant? Maybe? Yeah. All right, everybody, moving on to the next piece here, and that is regarding the donations that we have received for DECA. Do you guys want to cue this up a little bit?
I certainly can.
That would be great.
Yep. So as we've heard from DECA leadership, and I think you're all very well aware, we have a great group of students that are going to nationals this year. The cost obviously are increased with distance. They've done a great job of fundraising. However, there always remains a need to have support for this program. So we've received notice that there's 2 pending donations, one from Clinton Savings Bank, which has traditionally been very generous and supportive of the DECA program, and also now Aligned Credit Union has continued its support of the program with their donation. So there's a $3,000 donation and a $2,500 donation up for approval this evening. And I know that the students are excited for their trip. But also I know that they're in need of additional support, so this would be very helpful for them.
Excellent. So before we have discussion, maybe Amy, could you give us a motion for these donations?
Sure. I move to accept the donations from Clinton Savings Bank in the amount of $3,000 and Aligned Credit Union in the amount of $2,500. These funds will help defray the travel costs associated with the International Career Development Conference.
I'll second that. Any discussion from the committee or questions?
I have a question. So do we don't need to say that this is in the motion that this is for DECA or anything like that?
I think that conference that you just identified is DECA.
Okay.
Is that right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's sufficient. All right. Seeing no other discussion, we'll take the vote. Amy Vessels? Myself, yes. Amy Cohen?
Yep.
And I don't know if you guys heard Amy Vessels, but she said yes. Sharon?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And Shondor?
Yes.
So thank you so much to those community partners for helping subsidize this amazing program. And we wish all of the DECA kids the best of luck as they head to nationals. Go get them, Nashoba. Represent. All right, guys. So that's it for finance and operations. Thank you, Ross, for all of that information. So on to unfinished business, guys. We have a few votes that we're looking to take, the last of which will maybe give us a little bit more pause, but let's start with the school choice. I'd like to take a motion from Amy and then we can discuss.
All right.
And actually, Kirk, the motion that was written, I know that there was some conversation about whether or not the motion needed to change. Is Amy's motion as given to us by Alita still good?
Yeah, as long as it reflects that last slide, the motion was fine. I just had an error on that 1/6 grade color in.
But that's not going to affect the
Yeah,
motion.
that will not affect because we would be voting to close at Florence Sawyer kindergarten 1, 2, 4, and 6 is in the motion.
Got it.
The motion is correct, Ivan. So,
And so Amy, hold on one second. It is just one motion, but it is a very long motion. Do you agree, Amy?
yes, there were two, just for full transparency, the motions I was given, there's two motions that I have written here, but I was going to move the recommendations of the superintendent as opposed to withdrawing from the school choice program altogether. And I assumed we could discuss after that, make sure everybody agrees.
But Kirk, we're supposed to move to withdraw first. And
Well,
then move to further move to limit.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're not opening school choice just universally. So I think we should just be specific to that to just make sure it's clear in the record. So what I will do, Ms. Cohen, is I will offer my recommendation to the committee, and then anyone on the committee can move as recommended.
That would probably be
Great, thank you.
easiest.
So the first recommendation I would like to make to the committee is to move to withdraw from the school choice program for the 24-25 school year due to enrollment and class size standards as follows. DESE to be notified of this vote. Please excuse me, I got a notice that my computer is running out of power.
Of course.
That should be remedied. I'll repeat. Move to withdraw from the school choice program for the 24-25 school year due to enrollment and class size standards as follows. DESE to be notified of this vote. Florence Sawyer School, close grades, kindergarten, 1, 2, 4, and 6. Mary Rowlandson Elementary, close all grades. Luther Burbank Middle School, close grades 6 and 7. Center School, close all grades. Hale Middle School, close grade 6. That's the first recommendation.
Would you like to tell us your second recommendation?
The second recommendation, part 2, is move to limit school choice enrollment for the 24-25 school year as follows. DESE to be notified of this vote. At Florence Sawyer School, allow 4 students in 3rd grade, 2 students for 5th grade, 4 students for 7th grade, and 4 students for 8th grade. Luther Burbank Middle School, 4 students for 8th grade. Hale Middle School, 4 students for 7th grade, 4 students for 8th grade. Nashoba Regional High School, 4 students for 9th grade, 4 students for 10th grade, 4 students for 11th grade, 4 students for 12th grade. Furthermore, no more than 11 total students district-wide for grade 8.
Thank you for that recommendation, and I've put it in the chat because I'm a very fast typer. No. So it's all in there for you guys if you can see the chat. You can't see the chat because I direct messaged it to Laura. Hold on.
It is the final slide of the presentation, so you can view it there.
Do not steal my thunder, Kirk. My chat thunder. Okay, that should have gone to everyone this time. Laura, you get it twice. So that's Kirk's recommendation, as is the case in the last slide of the presentation.
Okay.
So go ahead, Amy.
I will move to accept the superintendent's recommendations with regard to the school choice program for the 2024-2025 school year.
I will second that. Is there any discussion from the committee? Any questions? Yes, Scott.
So I'm trying to understand why you're recommending a 4 student per grade per school limit. Can you explain that, please?
Yes. Last year, Mr. Powell, we had not participated in school choice for quite some time. There was some concern brought forward by the committee of the numbers. Would we be able to manage the numbers? How can we control them as changes in populations happen? And so as we looked at this, we said, well, if we limit it at 4 per grade level per school, that will give us a manageable load to understand the demand. I actually think it's a very reasonable place to be, particularly since we opened up 43 slots last year and we accepted all 20 students who applied to those spots.
That helps, Scott?
No. I still don't understand
think-
exactly where the 4 comes from.
Nope.
If I could, Kirk, just
Yeah.
say that I actually remember making this comment last year, that there was one grade level last year that could have taken in like 20 kids, that the allowable number, right? And it almost would have like doubled the grade at a particular school. And I made a comment that I worry about school culture. And as we're trying to create this sense of belonging and build connections where we have very large influxes of kids who are not familiar with. And so I remember personally making this comment, and I still believe it's true, that it's wonderful to have this infusion of new students into our district, but that I would like to see that tethered to some level of control where we're not tipping the balance so much in one particular grade where then the staff and the district is having to kind of take extraordinary measures to manage school culture. And I'm not sure if that's what's driving Kirk's thinking, but I remember making that comment last year.
I do remember there was some discussion about concerns regarding integration last year. But I do wonder, 4 does seem a little arbitrary, as any number would be. But, I'm just looking, for example, at Florence Sawyer. So, we're talking about 4 students adding 4 to a class of 74 in 8th grade, whereas we're adding 4 to a class of 82 in 7th grade. And it just, I understand the concerns about integration, and I'm not going to hold up this vote on this particular point, but I would like the administration to consider if there might be another way of limiting it that might allow in a few more kids, like maybe up to 10% of the class or something along those lines. Just think about other limits for this discussion next year, please.
I'm happy to do so, Mr. Powell, at the direction of the committee. As I said, this is put forward to the committee so I can learn in terms of what your thoughts and desires are. So as we think about that next year, absolutely, we can consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Good point, Scott. Any other comments or questions? All right, everybody. So I'm not seeing any more golden hands. We're going to move to the vote. I will start by saying yes. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Shondor.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Kirk, for that very thoughtful process once again. We really do appreciate all the hard work that goes into that. As you guys all know, the door could just be kicked wide open. That's not what you're doing. And we really appreciate all the effort you put into this and making things great for all kids.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Moving on here with the agenda. Next is the NRHS student travel, the trip to France. And you guys are asked to take a vote today on the presentations that we received at the last meeting. And so, Amy, do you have a motion for us?
Yes, I move to approve the Nashoba Regional High School student trip to France on April 21st, 2025 to May 4th, 2025 for approximately 20 students and 3 chaperones as presented on the April 10th, 2024 school committee meeting. All chaperones will be fingerprinted and queried.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take the vote. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Sharon.
Yes.
Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Shondor.
Yes.
And Karen.
Yes.
Fantastic. I hope they have, whoever goes, I hope they have a fantastic time. And we look forward to welcoming students from France here. That's exciting. I love to see the travel program coming back. It was just so great before the pandemic, and I'm so grateful to those educators who are reviving it. So thank you to all of them. All right, guys, the part you've all been waiting for, policy. Amy Vessels has been an amazing steward here. We have these 3 policies that we're going to be looking at today. Amy, I'm going to actually turn it over to you if you don't mind for this. Before we put a motion on the table, because we're going to take motions for each one individually. Amy, could you just go through each one and then we'll do a motion? And so starting with BHE, what's happening here? Just remind the committee what we discussed last time, because a few people weren't present, and what small changes you made, and then we'll maybe hold a little bit of discussion before the motion, and then we'll go forward.
With BHE, one of the concerns that people brought forward in the meeting last time was about electronic messaging between and among members of the school committee. And so we just went in and added in a few small phrases that said, you know, basically that you should not be doing that when a quorum is present. So it's not saying that you can never use electronic messaging, that you can only, you know, before it was said you could only use it for housekeeping purposes, but now we've changed that a little bit to say that you should only be using it for housekeeping purposes when a quorum is present. So
Do you guys have any? That's perfect. Thank you, Amy. So this is a concern that Amy Cohen brought up at the last meeting. I think that the changes make sense. Maybe the word, I don't know if the wordsmithing is something that we care about, but any questions on the substance of this matter? Amy Cohen, does this satisfy you?
Yeah, I think this takes care of my concern. Thank you very much.
Any other discussion or comments before we take a motion?
I just wanted to mention that the people that were absent last time were all on the policy subcommittee, so we did talk about it a lot.
Fantastic. God, you guys are good. All right, so Amy Cohen, do you want to throw a motion out for this one?
Yes, sorry. Need to toggle back to my motions. I move to approve the revisions to policy BHE as presented tonight.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's take the vote. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Shondor.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
And Karen.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to policy EFD. So Amy, what's going on here?
We did not make any changes. When we met with Kirk on Monday night, he said Ross was going to speak about this policy, and he did not feel like it would need to change. So he said Ross was going to present about it.
Okay, and so Kirk or Ross, feel free to explain what you're thinking.
Let me set it up by saying Mr. Mulcairn and I had a chance to meet about this week, so he dug in and did some research. Madam Chair, I did send to you via email some recommended language that Mr. Mulcairn is offering to add to this policy, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Mulcairn to address the concerns. I know, Mr. Mulcairn, you did have an opportunity to review the discussion from the last meeting, and you have some thoughts.
Yes, thank you, Superintendent Downing. I did. I watched the recording of the meeting, as well as obviously reviewed the policy. So a couple of things of note with regards to the what I think are the 2 main points for discussion. Number 1 being request first notification. So I have some thoughts and some language on that. and then also the conversation with regards to unclaimed balances. So I was able to complete some internal research to understand a little bit deeper our policies and procedures out of food services. Again, I would point to, our food services RFP, which is coming to closure soon. We'll be having our responses from potential vendors. We had very good turnout for our facilities tours a couple weeks ago. So again, these are the expertise that they'll be able to bring in, which we would appreciate. So with regards to our internal processes, I do see areas where we can improve through policy. With regards to the unclaimed balances, I spoke with our auditors. I spoke with our treasurer, Vicky Chartier, and I also spoke with a contact at the Unclaimed Property Division, which is part of the Mass State Treasurer's Office, I think more commonly known as findmassmoney.com. So there's some not competing opinions on this, but there is certain accounting practices and state laws that are at play based on the level of the balance, how long it's been on our books for, et cetera. So I do have some potential policy language for consideration. I do actually have an update potentially to even what I shared with Superintendent Downing this afternoon, because I did speak with our treasurer probably post that meeting. So I can put this into the chat if that would suffice.
Yeah, let's give it a whirl.
Okay.
Just don't send it to only Laura.
I will not. Okay, this looks like it's good. So what I'm presenting for recommended language is positive balances of graduating students with a sibling in the district will automatically transfer to the next oldest sibling's account. So therefore, if a student graduates, we automatically then transfer any balance to the next oldest sibling. When students are graduating, they're asked to pay any deficits they may have in the school lunch program. So we're not setting up either also a condition of a deficit then gets counted against the next sibling. So this is strictly with regards to positive balances. Any other student leaving the district by withdrawal or graduation will be notified of their balance for the refund and the procedure for requesting the refund. Then this is also some language that may have changed since I spoke with Superintendent Downing. Unclaimed balances will be subject to applicable Massachusetts general law. So I think that opens up channels for levels of balance, how long we've had them, without getting into too much detail on that with the policy. So if applicable Massachusetts general law changes, our policy is flexible to that change in statute.
Okay, and so you are recommending that language right there be attached to the policy, maybe a final paragraph in the policy?
Actually, no, I should have prefaced. This would replace the section on, pull it back up. I think it's just called refund.
It's called payments.
Sorry, I have too many.
I think it just says refunds.
Too many tabs open.
Yes, refunds. Thank you. That would be the section that it would replace.
Got it. All right, so does everybody understand the recommendation? I think I see Karen's hand.
I'm just wondering, so if that's going to replace refunds, would the option to donate to a student in need with a written request still be an option for families, or is that no longer an option?
So my recommendation would be to remove that language for the following reason, is that we no longer have students who may be having increased deficits within our school lunch accounts because of their first meal. So a lot of that has been taken care of. I think in the past, prior to universal school lunch, we would see families who may be, increasing their bill owed simply by the child taking a lunch every day. Any child can get that first breakfast or lunch any day of the week. So we won't see those increases. This is just really balances on a la carte or seconds that students may have. And again, those types of things need to be paid prior to graduation commitments. I also would be concerned about how do we identify the process of which student in need and to what extent. So certainly that's a consideration.
Okay. Thanks.
I guess I would finish that with also saying we are willing to work with any family on payment plan or anything that there may be with regards to any sort of school lunch account balance, you know, and work with them, especially when you get towards graduation.
Great. Thanks, Jackie.
I know that we've said that before. I know sometimes though in my own work, there's hesitation on parts of families when those kinds of situations have come forth. So I appreciate that. I also would be concerned that people won't take advantage of that, even if it's offered.
All right. Any other questions about this policy with Ross's additional language? And so I feel, oh, go ahead, Sharon.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. No question, just a comment. Thank you to Ross for taking a look at that and adding that in. I feel like that is more fair to families to be certain that we keep track of the money that they have put into the system and that they get it back if they haven't used it.
All right. So Amy Cohen, I think we're ready for a motion if you can fashion one here.
Yes, I move to, sorry. Just okay. I move to adopt policy EFD as with the revisions presented in tonight's meeting.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Sharon. Yes, she said. Scott.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Shandor.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
And Karen.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Wow, moving right along here. We're going to look at the final piece, and that is GBEE. Amy Vessels, can you tell us what's going on here?
Yes, after our discussion last week about the concerns around use of resources given by the district for personal communication, we spoke to Kirk about this at our policy meeting on Monday, and he had spoken to, I think, who is it?
Suchi, our technology manager.
Yes, and so they decided, I think, together that they would recommend taking that out, and so I did take that out.
All right, so you guys can see that red line there in the meeting material. I think that I'll just go ahead with a motion from Amy Cohen.
Okay, I move to approve the revisions to policy GBEE as presented tonight.
I'll second that. Any discussion or questions, everyone? All right, so let's go for the vote. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Shandor.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Awesome. So policy subcommittee, great job persevering through all of that. We're so proud of you guys. Amy runs a well-oiled machine, and she promised that she has dozens more for us before the end of the year. So some of them is like replacing commas, and our English teacher friend, Amy Vessels, knows that commas matter. So we'll follow her lead. Thanks for that, Amy. All right, so moving on here, we're going to head over to subcommittee reports. And Mike is not present for Budget and Warrant tonight. He had other matters to attend to, but I wonder if other members of Budget and Warrant have anything that you can share with us? Anything,
We
Scott?
haven't met since the last school committee meeting, and the next budget warrant committee's meeting is scheduled for May 14th.
Fantastic, thanks. Over to communication. Anything going on, Sharon? A lot's going on. What's going on?
We met just after our last meeting. Still working on those final details. We're really close. I think I sent the new version to you, Leah.
I owe you an email, don't I?
That's okay, no worries. Let's
I'll
make
do
it this
that.
week. So we're really close when we can get it onto the calendar, and then we'll see kind of what feedback the committee has from there.
Awesome. Thanks, communication. Over to Joe with the school building committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The building committee will be meeting tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. I have literally nothing to report. We have an astoundingly light agenda tomorrow night. I will just remind everybody that we're looking at groundbreaking for June 7th. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, music to the ears. Thanks, Joe. Over to personnel. Sharon, what's up here?
No report.
Okay, doke. Just as a quick note for personnel, we do have the superintendent's evaluation coming up in the coming month, so personnel will really kick into high gear then. Policy, anything else, Amy, other than my joke about how much you have on your plate?
No, just that we're meeting Monday to finalize stuff to bring to the committee at the beginning of May on the parent communication policy.
Excellent. Kirk, something to add?
That was just it. Yes.
All right. She beat you. Over to audit advisory. Dina, anything there?
I'm not sure the last time I gave an update, but we did receive one response to our RFP from Markham, but we wanted to get more, so we sent it out again and then extended the deadline, which I think is the first week of May. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Ross. So we are going to meet, I think, that Tuesday or Wednesday after that to review what else has come in.
And so at least Markham's interested in working for us again.
Oh, thank goodness.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good, at least. They are the auditor who we have had for a couple of years. Yeah, okay. And we did just receive the audit.
Yes, we did. So we will also be reviewing that at our next meeting as well.
Awesome. And so you guys all should have received the audit that is required that you receive it, and you did, hopefully. So Dina, you can report on that the next go around. Okay, cool. Over to Dear Jay and Jackie.
So just to quickly update, the meeting minutes were approved at our last meeting on April 3rd for the minutes from February 26th. So interested school committee members and community members can access that on the district landing page. The April 3rd meeting really focused on continued support of the school committee and specifically around the equity audit. There was a review and brief discussion around the PLC that happened in March, and that the upcoming meeting on May 7th will look at, just discussing more in ways that DRJ can continue to support the work of the school committee in our next year ahead of us.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackie. Karen, anything for CPAC?
CPAC was supposed to meet yesterday, but it got moved to tonight. So they had a meeting this evening. I did check in about their presentation and got confirmation that CPAC will be able to present in May. So I just wanted to confirm with you, Leah, that May 22nd is still a good date. That's where it is on the planning calendar, but I just wanted to check before I confirm with them.
You said May 22nd?
Yes, it's on the planning calendar for May 22nd. So I just wanted to make sure that still works, and then I will confirm with them.
I think, yeah, as far as I can tell, We obviously we have a packed schedule over the next month or so, but we are excited to hear from them. And so that night might be the best bet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. And that is it, I believe, for our subcommittee and advisory reports. So items for next agenda, you guys can see the planning calendar perhaps. I'm actually, I'm able to quickly share that with you now if you would like to look upon. Oops. So today's the 24th, obviously. Here is the information for May 8th. I don't like it when it does this. I'm just going to go like this to help us out. There's May 8th, 22nd, and June 5th. As always, guys, if there's anything that you would like to see on the planning calendar that is not there, you can either tell me now or you can email me at some point. Kirk.
I am noticing that we need to include Mr. Blanchard's entry report. So he'll do his report on entry findings. I think the May 22nd meeting might be the most appropriate time to do that.
Okay, I have it on the 8th, Kirk, but would you rather?
Oh, I can't see it on my report.
Yeah, no worries. Do you want to move it?
I have my consult with Mr. Blanchard this week, so I will check in with him. And
okay,
if we
you
need
let
to
us
shift
know.
it. Yeah.
That's good work though. We look forward to that.
The Brady Bunch maze was over that part, so I didn't see it.
Right. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll up very quickly to the parking lot and, Joe, I have not forgotten about our quorum conundrum, and that is something that we do need to kind of bring to the fore at some point, get some definitive explanation on quorum. So that's in here. Parent communication policy is coming, the school committee manual is coming, and the MTSS presentation, kind of all things special education, is in the parking lot, and that is going to definitely be a focus of the district next year with a new director coming online, I know. And so if that doesn't happen this year, it is something that will happen. However, I did see the MTSS handbook featured quite a bit in the equity audit, so that helps. Okay, and so just FYI, I like to give a heads up. Alita, can you help me with something really quick? Is June 5th the organizational meeting? Or is it June 15th? Do you know, Kirk?
The next meeting would have been June 19th, and that's Juneteenth, so we can't, that's a federal holiday. So we either have one meeting in June or we have the second meeting really later.
Yeah.
Right after this one. So 2 weeks from the 15th would be Juneteenth.
Got it. And so I want the committee to kind of consider this because we do have some amazing committee members who are rolling off of the committee when elections happen. And you guys might remember that the regional agreement has kind of redefined the term length of school committee members. And what that means is that the organizational meeting is the first meeting of the newly elected members of school committee. And the meeting right prior to that, which would be the second meeting in May, would be the last meeting of those who are rolling off. So I'm not sure that we want it to be that way. So I just want to put a pin in it for now, and maybe we can discuss it at the next meeting, how we want to handle the organizational meeting. And whether or not we want to add another school committee meeting in June to kind of wrap matters up before the new members come on. So that I'm gonna kind of put that up for deliberation at our next meeting. So I'm sure that Amy has a question. Go ahead, Amy Vessels.
Oh yeah, you just need to let us know too when you want to deal with all that policy stuff. It's not like a lot of them are short, but there's like several things. So
got it.
We're going to be working on that at the next two meetings. So, if it can be in June, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, so we'll discuss the calendar at the next meeting and do a little bit more work there. All right. So anything else that anybody wants to put on the table before we adjourn?
Yeah, just one question.
Go for it.
What about the food services update? Are we gonna get anything from Ross on how that's progressing? I'm very
Do you
anxiously
mean,
awaiting.
you
Well,
mean
we were
the
outsourcing, weren't we?
the RFP stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Great question.
Yeah, is it okay to provide a quick update?
Not today, but can I put you on at the next meeting? Would
Yeah,
that
we
be
can
okay?
put it on for the 8th.
Excellent. That is something that just kept getting bumped for a variety of good reasons. This would be considered unfinished business, so.
Madam Chair, for clarification,
Yeah.
Ms. Ellis, I think what you're asking for there is just like sort of an update on where we are on the process.
Well, I wasn't sure if
the 8th
anything came in yet, or when is it closed?
So what we'll do is we'll include a section in the announcements portion of the superintendent report and report back sort of an update on progress there.
Okay. I mean, we can wait if it's gonna close out before we're finished with this, this season 2.
Thank you.
Just curious.
Yeah, we'll have
I'll
a
put it-
update.
Okay.
I'll put a question mark on it and then Kirk and I can shore it up next time we meet on when. Thanks for that, Dana. Anything else? All right, so obviously if something comes to you, let me know. You can just email me and I'll throw it on the conversation list for Kirk and me next Wednesday. But other than that, everyone, I do believe it's 8:37 and I'm going to move to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Nice job. Let's go for the vote. Amy Vessels.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Amy Cohen.
Yes.
Sharon.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Jackie. She said yes. Karen.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Dana.
Yes.
And Shondor.
Yes.
All right, people. Thanks for everything, everyone.
Who
Have a good night.
seconded that, Leah?
Dana.
Dana.